Imagine this. In one of the most revered hallways of the Vatican, you are hiding behind a marble column. Incense and something much more intoxicating filled the air. In 1501 AD, you saw what no eye should ever see inside these hallowed walls through the shadows created by flickering candelabras. Through the corridors where saints once roamed, the sound of laughter mingles with the rustle of silk against stone. Your heart pounds against your ribs as you realize you're about to witness the most scandalous evening in papal history, an orgy so depraved that it would make even the Romans of antiquity blush with shame. The October air carries the scent of roasted chestnuts through the Vatican apartments, but tonight, these humble nuts will become props in a performance that will forever stain the reputation of the Catholic Church. In the private chambers of Cesare Borgia, son of Pope Alexander VI, 50 courtesans prepare for an evening that will be recorded in the most secretive diary of Renaissance Rome, preserved in the Vatican archives for centuries like a forbidden confession hidden beneath layers of pious prayers. Before diving into these forgotten stories, if you enjoy learning about hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. The man who became the most perverted pope in history was born Rodrigo Borgia on January 1, 1431 AD in Spain. His uncle, Alfonso de Borgia, became Pope Calixtus III in 1455 AD, sealing young Rodrigo's fate. At 25, Rodrigo was made cardinal through nepotism that flowed through the church's veins like poison. He arrived in Rome with hunger in his eyes and ambition burning in his chest. Rome in the late 15th century was a city of contradictions. By day, pilgrims knelt before gilded altars. By night, the streets witnessed transactions that made merchants of flesh wealthy. The papal court had become a marketplace where everything, including salvation itself, carried a price tag. Rodrigo accumulated wealth with spider-like precision, living like a Renaissance prince rather than a man of God. His most significant relationship was with Vanard Zacatun, who bore him 4 children between 1474 and 1482 AD, Juan, Cecia, Lucia, and each child became a chess piece in Rodrigo's grand game of power. The conclave of August 1492 AD unfolded like choreographed corruption. Behind closed doors, gold changed hands like water. When smoke cleared on August 11th, Rodrigo emerged as Pope Alexander VI through open simony. Romans celebrated with bonfires and processions, anticipating magnificence and energy. Alexander began with promising reforms, restoring order to Rome's violent streets, but power revealed character rather than creating it. His pursuit of advancement for his children overshadowed everything. Juan became Duke of Gandari, while Cesare, despite being only 18, was appointed Archbishop of Valencia. The papal apartments became a theater where sacred and profane performed obscene ballet. Alexander's mistress, Julia Fairs, moved through Vatican corridors as freely as any cardinal, a constant reminder that spiritual vows had been trampled by earthly desires. Johann Burchard arrived as papal master of ceremonies, maintaining a detailed diary that recorded both magnificent ceremonies and scandalous conduct. His dry, matter-of-fact tone carried truth's weight precisely because it lacked romantic flourishes. He occupied a unique position, neither high enough to participate in corruption, nor low enough to be excluded from witnessing it. The events of June 14, 1497 AD changed everything. Juan's body was discovered floating in the Tiber River, his throat cut. The murder struck Alexander with profound grief. For 3 days he refused food and sleep, announcing church reform programs, but grief proved temporary. Within months, reform proposals were forgotten as attention turned to surviving son Cesare. Cesare possessed magnetism that drew admirers and enemies alike. Tall, handsome, with genius-level intelligence, he resigned his cardinalate in 1498 AD, the first cardinal to voluntarily abandon sacred office for secular power. Through siege warfare, assassination, and political manipulation, he carved out a domain in central Italy, becoming Machiavelli's model for the prince. Such success required resources that even papal coffers struggled to provide. The sale of indulgences, church offices, and cardinal hats became systematic. Alexander appointed 47 new cardinals during his reign, each representing thousands of ducats flowing into papal treasury and ultimately Caesare's war chest. The Vatican apartments became stages for increasingly elaborate entertainments, testing behavioral boundaries. These gatherings demonstrated papal wealth, provided negotiation opportunities, and tested loyalty among supporters. Cardinals who participated were implicated. Those who refused marked themselves as enemies. The autumn of 1501 AD found the Borgia family at their power's height. It was in this atmosphere of triumph and moral decay that Caesare conceived what became known as the Banquet of Chestnuts. October 31st, 1501 AD, All Hallows' Eve, when boundaries between sacred and profane traditionally thinned. Caesare's magnificently decorated apartments would host an evening epitomizing everything critics accused the family of representing. The guest list revealed corruption's breadth. Cardinals mixed with Roman nobles, diplomats from European courts, and 50 sophisticated courtesans who understood the delicate art of providing pleasure while maintaining discretion. Johann Burchard was present in his official capacity, perfectly positioned to witness and record events that others might prefer forgetting. His clinical Latin account preserves details illuminating both that evening's specifics and Alexander's papacy's broader moral climate. According to Burchard's record, the evening began conventionally with dinner in Caesare's private chambers. As servants cleared plates, true entertainment commenced. The 50 courtesans began dancing, gradually discarding garments until performing completely nude. The centerpiece involved chestnuts, giving the banquet its name. Servants placed candelabras on the floor, creating flickering light pools separated by shadows. Chestnuts were scattered between these sources, and nude courtesans crawled on hands and knees collecting them, their bodies illuminated by candlelight. Pope Alexander watched from his seat of honor with Caesare and Lucrezia. The final phase involved competitions among male guests to see who could achieve relations with the greatest number of courtesans. Prizes of silk tunics, shoes, and luxury items were offered, while servants kept public score. Burchard's account was sealed in Vatican secret archives for centuries. When Pope Leo XIII opened archives to researchers in the late 19th century, he specifically expressed reluctance about documents potentially damaging Alexander's reputation. The morning after found Rome unchanged on its surface, but fundamentally altered spiritually. Word spread through servants, guards, and officials, reaching diplomatic correspondence throughout Europe. Even representatives of morally flexible secular courts expressed amazement at Vatican proceedings. Alexander's response was characteristically defiant. Rather than remorse or reform, he intensified support for Caesare's campaigns. The scandal seemed to liberate him from whatever restraints previously limited his behavior. The banquet wasn't isolated moral failure, but logical culmination of years of escalating corruption. Sacred and profane had become so thoroughly intermingled that distinguishing between them required effort few were willing to make. Alexander died August 18, 1503 AD, possibly from malaria, but surrounded by poisoning rumors. His death brought immediate consequences. Caesare's support evaporated without papal protection, and he died fighting as a common mercenary 4 years later. Julius II refused to occupy Borgia apartments where the banquet occurred, commissioning Raphael to decorate rooms above with frescoes that became celebrated Vatican artworks. This relocation symbolized broader attempts to distance the papacy from Alexander's moral failures. The Banquet of Chestnuts represents more than papal misconduct. It illuminates Renaissance Italy's transformation from medieval Christendom to early modern European state system. Alexander's behavior reflected secular princes' values, but created unsustainable contradictions given his spiritual leadership position. As we look back across 5 centuries at that candlelit evening, we see reflections of humanity's eternal struggle between sacred aspirations and profane desires. The chestnuts scattered across papal chamber floors were humble fruits that became symbols of how far human dignity can fall when power escapes moral constraint. The candles that illuminated that notorious evening have long since gutted out, participants crumbled to dust, and those rooms now display priceless artworks to reverent tourists. But Burchard's careful prose preserves moments when the boundary between sacred and profane collapsed entirely, when the Vicar of Christ became indistinguishable from Rome's most dissolute emperors, and chestnuts scattered on marble floors bore witness to the distance between human ambition and divine calling.